let's just jump straight into this, because today we're unraveling a true crime mystery that honestly feels like it was ripped right out of a Hollywood thriller. But I promise you, every single detail we're going to cover in this explainer is completely grounded in cold, hard facts. We're going to break down an impossible crime scene, a totally unexplainable confession, and a literal desperate race against time. So let's get right into it.
It's a remote roadside lodge on the quiet outskirts of the city. It's the dead of night, exactly 1:12 a.m. Suddenly, the absolute silence is shattered by two rapid, deafening gunshots. Nearby residents jolt awake, terrified, and instantly dial 911. Police dispatch units are scrambled, and within minutes they are completely swarming the property.
Okay, let's dive into what they actually found, because it's bizarre. The officers trace the sound to a second-floor room, but the door is deadbolted from the inside. They have to physically force it open. And when they finally breach the room, everyone just freezes. Inside, it's this classic, almost impossible setup. Two dead bodies on the floor, one locked room, and a suspect sitting right there, literally holding the gun.
Now, you're probably looking at this and thinking, well, that's an open and shut case, right? I mean, what more evidence could the police possibly need? But hold on a second. I really want you to question that assumption. This perfect, neat little setup is exactly what makes this case so incredibly fascinating. Because as any seasoned detective will tell you, when a crime scene looks this unbelievably perfect, something is usually terribly, terribly wrong. Let's quickly break down the exact facts of the room. You've got the two victims, businessman Michael Carter and attorney David Brooks. But the wildest detail here is the suspect, Ryan Foster. He isn't trying to flee, he isn't panicking or screaming, he is just sitting quietly beside the window. The absolute chaos of a double murder just went down in a tiny, locked space, and yet Ryan is eerily calm, with a pistol just resting casually in his right hand. Get this, as the officers cautiously approach to strip the gun away from him, Ryan doesn't resist at all. Instead, he just looks up and calmly delivers this absolute chiller of a quote. "Yes, I shot them." Think about how crazy that is for a second. Nobody had even asked him a question yet. The police hadn't pressured him, they hadn't read him his rights, nothing. He offered up this totally uncoerced confession entirely on his own.
Naturally, they slap the cuffs on him and take him straight to the station. But when they ask him why he did it, Ryan just lowers his head and mutters, "Personal reasons." He completely refuses to elaborate. He tells them there's nothing else to explain. But the lead investigator, Detective Ethan Walker, notices something super weird. As they sit there in the interrogation room, Ryan just keeps looking at the wall clock. Over and over. It's obsessive. It's almost as if he is waiting for a very specific, crucial moment to arrive.
Well, a few hours later, a massive forensic paradox completely shatters everything. Ryan swore up and down, "I shot them." But the reality? The ballistics came back, and the bullets that killed those men did not come from Ryan's pistol. Actually, scratch that, it's even crazier. Laboratory testing proved Ryan's gun had never even been fired. So this completely flips the entire investigation on its head. Put yourself right in the detective's shoes for a minute. The room was bolted from the inside. There is absolutely no second weapon found anywhere in that space. So, where is the second gun? If Ryan didn't pull the trigger, who did? And how on earth did the real killer get out of a locked room without leaving the murder weapon behind?
The police are desperately scrambling for security footage now, and they stumble into this totally maddening logistical puzzle. A camera catches a black sedan arriving at the lodge at 1:03 a.m. But here's the catch. The camera isn't rolling continuous video, it only snaps still photographs every 30 seconds. Just a tiny 30-second gap. And in the very next frame, the black sedan has completely vanished. It's like a magic trick. The real killer slipped through that tiny window undetected. No license plate, nothing. The trail goes completely cold.
But then, a tiny digital breadcrumb gets things moving again. Detectives pull Ryan's phone records, and they find that just minutes before the murders, at 12:58 a.m., he got a super brief 11-second call from a burner phone. A minute later, Ryan sends a single text back. "I understand." That's it. Nothing else. But this tiny little exchange, it's the absolute game changer they needed.
They trace the location of that burner phone to a convenience store just about a kilometer down the road from the lodge, and the camera there captures a brilliantly calculated getaway switch. A woman is sitting there, waiting on a motorcycle.
Then, the phantom black sedan from the lodge pulls up. A guy jumps out of the sedan, hops onto the back of the motorcycle, and they just vanish into the night, while someone else casually drives the sedan away. This proves definitively that the killer was not acting alone, and Ryan was absolutely acting as an accomplice to cover their tracks.
Armed with this new evidence, the detectives confront Ryan. He finally admits the guy who escaped wasn't a friend, he wasn't family. So we really have to stop and ask, why? Why in the world would you confess to a brutal double homicide you didn't commit just to protect a total stranger? What could possibly push someone to literally throw their own life away like that?
The truth? It is absolutely heartbreaking. The real motive behind this massive, elaborate cover-up wasn't a payoff. It wasn't some gang revenge. It was a 6-year-old girl. Just hours before the murders, the real killer had approached Ryan in absolute tears. He showed Ryan a video on his phone of his young daughter bound, terrified, and crying.
This incredibly vicious criminal organization had given this desperate father an impossible ultimatum. They had his little girl. Their demand was blunt. Go to the lodge and kill the businessman Carter and the attorney Brooks, or the little girl dies. And they made one thing crystal clear. If the police got involved, if there were any arrests at all, they would instantly kill the child.
So the absolutely crucial turning point is how Ryan responds to this complete nightmare. He wanted to call the cops, obviously, but there just wasn't enough time before the cartel's deadline. So he made a choice. He deliberately turned himself into a decoy. He sat in that locked room holding a gun that had never been fired, offering up a totally false confession just to stall the police. He figured if the cops believed they already had the killer, the real shooter would have a few precious hours to launch a desperate last-ditch rescue mission for his daughter.
And suddenly, the entire mystery of the interrogation room makes perfect sense. This is exactly why Ryan was obsessively watching that ticking clock on the wall. He knew the police were planning a completely separate secret raid on the kidnapper's hideout based on an anonymous tip the father had managed to provide. At exactly 4:05 a.m., a tactical team stormed the hideout and, miraculously, pulled that little girl out alive. 10 minutes later, at 4:15 a.m., Ryan finally got the confirmation he'd been agonizing over.
The absolute second he knew that little girl was safe, the whole facade just instantly dropped. At 4:15 a.m., Ryan looked right at the detective. You could probably see the tension just completely leave his body. And he delivered this incredible line. Now, write this down. I lied. The reason to hide the truth was finally gone.
So what happens next? Well, the aftermath of Ryan's crazy gamble played out pretty much exactly as he'd hoped, though obviously with huge consequences. The kidnapping ring was entirely dismantled, and those guys were locked away. The real killer, the desperate father who actually pulled the trigger at the lodge, was eventually tracked down and had to face justice for the double homicide. But honestly, it's Ryan's fate that really hits you hard in this explainer. During his trial, as Ryan was facing some very severe legal consequences for completely derailing a murder investigation, the judge looked down from the bench and asked him a really profound question. Did you realize this false confession could have destroyed your own life?
Ryan looked right back at the judge and just quietly answered, yes. Then he took a breath and added, but if I hadn't stayed silent, a 6-year-old girl wouldn't be alive today. It is just an unbelievable testament to human sacrifice. He was fully prepared to take the absolute brunt of the justice system, maybe even spend the rest of his life in a prison cell, all to shield a child he had never even met. It really makes you completely reevaluate how we look at crime, guilt, and the justice system as a whole, doesn't it? I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Sometimes people hide the truth to escape justice, and sometimes they hide the truth to save someone else's life. What would you have done if you were in Ryan's shoes?